You may have heard of the A button challenge, in which you try to collect stars using as few A presses as possible. Well, today, we're gonna take a trip down memory lane as I explain to you what went into one of my favorite A press saves, getting onto the tower in Whomp's Fortress. So let's dive in. So here's the course Whomp's Fortress. At the top of the course is a tower, and at the top of the tower is a star. So how many A presses does it take to reach that star? Well, let me show you. Here's a TAS I made that climbs up the course from the start. This TAS isn't going to do any crazy tricks because we're just trying to see which parts of the level seem like they require an A press. For the most part, the level's pretty easy because we can just use rollouts to get past everything, including getting up these steps with the help of the slope on the side. We can get past the piranha plant, the falling blocks, the narrow bridge, the rotating bridge. I mean, it is only the second level, so they're not exactly giving us the hardest of obstacles at this point in the game. But now we do get to our first real challenge, getting on these revolving elevators. Luckily though, there's a Whomp nearby, and he's exactly what we would have needed to get past this part. So we lure the Whomp over, have him fall down, get on top of him, and then it's pretty simple to go from the top of his head onto the elevator, allowing us to get up. Now there's a bullet bill here, but that's pretty simple to get past. And now we're finally at the tower. But as you can see, a rollout doesn't go high enough to get onto the tower's first platform. So unfortunately, we do need an A press to get onto it. Once we're on a tower platform though, it's pretty easy to keep climbing our way up. We can either do rollouts or ledge grabs. And note that the tower platforms alternate between being stationary and to moving in and out. That is, until you get to the last one, which functions as an elevator that brings you straight up. From there, we can do a rollout to get onto the top of the tower, and then do another rollout to get the star. Also note that there's a teleporter in the level that can move you farther along, so that can possibly save time. And there's this slope that we can climb up and get onto the elevator from there, so that could also speed things up. But the issue remains, how can we get onto the tower? As we just saw, along the whole path from start to finish, getting onto the tower is the one part that requires an A press. And I'm not alone in thinking that. If we look at the A button challenge records on SM64.com from decades ago, we see that every submission at the time had done this star in one A press, both in a task setting and a real-time setting. So this conundrum existed for many years before I came onto the scene. Would I be the one to finally solve it? Well, as you may know, I posted my own records for how many A presses each star takes. And even I posted a video in 2013 of me getting the star in one A press. And of course, that one A press was to get onto the tower. Now interestingly, I had also posted a video showing how the star could be done in 0.5 A presses, specifically by using an A press to hold on to the owl and riding him up to the star. But how is this 0.5 A presses and not just one A press? Well, in case you don't know, half A presses are a special notation I use, popularized by my video Watch for Rolling Rocks in 0.5 A presses. But this star in Whomp's Fortress was done years before that video. The 0.5 indicates that you go into a star with the A button already held down. So the Strat does use the A button, but it doesn't incur its own A press in a full game run because it can just leech off of a previous A press in the run. For example, we could first get the slide star, which requires an A press to jump up to it, then continue holding A between levels and use that same A press to ride the owl in Whomp's Fortress. So while these two stars both require an A press individually, they could actually just share one A press if we continue holding A from one to the other. So the half A press notation does capture a real aspect of saving A presses, but it actually doesn't work in this case specifically due to the way that the different mission layouts are set up. You see, when you enter the course, there are 6 missions to choose from, and which one you select affects the layout of the course. So here, the first mission has King Whomp at the top of the fortress, while the second mission and onwards has the tower at the top. The tower star itself is the second mission, but the owl is only available starting on the third mission. So in a full game run, the owl isn't available until after you've already collected the tower star. In other words, the owl can only help you get the star after you've already gotten it once, hence why the star was blue. And note that there's no way to cheat the system by collecting a later star and then selecting that later mission. The game still knows to only give you the last mission layout that you unlocked legitimately. For example, here I collect the third star, which then lets me hover on the third star in the menu even though I didn't collect stars 1 or 2. But even though I select the third mission, the game still gives me mission 1's layout, which doesn't have the owl. So yeah, this particular 0.5 A-press strat didn't make a whole lot of sense since it wouldn't even work in a full game run. The owl just can't help you get the star the first time, we'd need something else. So for about a year, from 2013 to 2014, that's where the record stood. I had tied the 1 A-press strat that everyone else had done and was content to leave it at that. But then, something changed everything. Tyler came into the scene and introduced some new glitches that would end up becoming instrumental in the A-button challenge going forward. First, there was the Star Dance clip. This is where you collect a star, which then lets you ledge grab as you fall down. Like normally, you can't ledge grab out of a rollout, but if you do a rollout into a star, then you can ledge grab, letting you get onto higher ledges. Second, there was vertical speed conservation. This is where you do a rollout that lands early so that you still have your upward speed stored. Then you can punch your way forwards, which lets you move while preserving the vertical speed. You can't walk because that would cause you to lose it. Now if you punch your way off a ledge and become airborne, the vertical speed reactivates and lets you freefall upwards for a bit. And that's more useful than doing a rollout because while in freefall, you can ground pound and ledge grab. And third, there were misalignments. So take a box and let's look at it from above on a unit grid scale. Now this blue area isn't actually where you can stand on the floor. Instead, because floor detection truncates Mario's position, it's this area that you can stand on, which is 1 unit bigger than the floor on the sides that face away from the origin. And now if we show the wall hitboxes, you can see that there's 1 unit square of floor that lies outside of the wall hitboxes. We call that unit square of floor a misalignment, and it's useful because it lets Mario reach the floor without getting pushed away by the walls. So for example, this box is too high to get onto by doing a rollout into the edge because the walls block us. But if we do a rollout into the misalignment in the corner, then we actually can snap up onto the floor without the walls blocking us. So the Star Dance clip, vertical speed conservation, and misalignments. Tyler popularized these 3 techniques for helping in the A-button challenge, and that changed everything, because platforms that were too high before might now have a way of getting onto them. We had more tools at our disposal, so there was more analysis to do. This wasn't like today when the A-button challenge is 99% solved and we know everything. This was back in the day when we were still learning all the glitches. It was the Wild West of the A-button challenge, where anyone could contribute if they had enough perseverance, and that was me. I was set on using these new tools to solve the tower once and for all. But even with these new tools, it wasn't clear what the best way to use them was. My first idea was to try to use them to get onto the first platform of the tower, since, you know, it is the lowest platform, so in theory it should be the easiest to reach. Concerning vertical speed conservation, even if we could get vertical speed near the platform, it wouldn't help. There's just no way to reactivate the vertical speed here because you need a ledge for that. And the platform is so high that doing a rollout at the misalignment wouldn't help either, we can't reach it. But what about the Star Dance clip? Could we even spawn a 100 coin star over here? Well, yes we can. You see, the course has some quirk boxes that you can carry around, and when the box breaks, it produces coins, which we can use to spawn a 100 coin star. But unfortunately, Mario still doesn't get onto the platform, he's just 36 units too low. Now when Mario collects a star, he actually falls with lower gravity. That means the earlier we grab the star during the rollout, the higher Mario ends up going. So in theory, we'd have a better shot at making it if the star were lower down and we collected it earlier. But the star spawns above Mario, so how could we possibly move it lower? Well, there is a way. What we can do is place a quirk box right where we want the future star to be. That sets the Holp there, which is a point stored in memory of the last place we held an object. Then collect 2 metal caps in a row, which lets Mario hold his hat in his hand. And as a side effect, any object we release now will appear at the Holp we set earlier. Then we grab a quirk box right as it disappears so that we end up holding a vacant object slot. And then we spawn a 100 coin star into that same slot. That's called cloning the star. Now we can release the 100 coin star remotely at the Holp we set earlier. So when we go back up, we can see the star clone there, now at ground level. So now we can collect the star on the first frame of the rollout, which lets Mario go just a bit higher up. But unfortunately, it's still not high enough. This time Mario's 21 units short. Here's a side-by-side of the two strats. If we pause it and zoom in, you can see that Mario goes just a little bit higher when the star was lower down. But he'd have to be at this height in order to ledge grab. So it is close, but ultimately doesn't work. So going for the first platform was a dead end. But what about the second platform? This one's higher up, but it is relatively close to the bullet bill block. So maybe we could first get onto the bullet bill block and then from there get onto the second platform of the tower. Well, getting onto the bullet bill block is actually fairly easy. We can just spawn a 100 coin star next to it and then get up with a star dance clip. So we're already halfway there, but how do we get from here to the tower? One idea I had was to do a rollout. The problem though is that the bullet bill block is very small and hard to work with. I mean, this attempt didn't even manage to land the dive back on the block, so the rollout started on the floor below. Let me illustrate what I mean. Let's say hypothetically, the bullet bill block were a lot bigger, but not any closer or higher up. Then it would actually be quite easy to roll out from the block to the tower because we have room for a good setup. But the normal size of the block doesn't allow for that. Something we can do though is dive grind along the edge to build up some speed and then do a rollout towards the platform. But it's not at a very good angle, so I couldn't get it to work. I also tried aiming at the corner, but I couldn't get that to work either. But watch this, if we pause time and then hack Mario to have a better angle, then he actually does make it. So that confirms the rollout makes it in theory, we just need a good setup for it. I also tried doing a dive on the back of the block, sliding forwards and then doing a rollout towards the tower. That gives a better angle, but it loses so much speed in the process that it doesn't make it either. Another idea I had was what if we could bring a cork box onto the bullet bill block with us. Then we can put it down and it disappears after 30 seconds. Right before that though, we can run directly into it, giving us speed and a good angle, and then we can dive as soon as the box disappears. But unfortunately, the dive goes too far and overshoots the block. Now another thing I considered was what if we threw the box into ourselves to propel us forward, ground pound to rise up a little more, and hope the box pushes us onto the platform. But sadly, I couldn't get it to work. Plus, it wasn't clear if we could even get a cork box on top of the bullet bill block. I also considered throwing the box from a really high up Holp to give us some setup time. Then we can quickly get on top of the block using a star dance clip, and then do a rollout right as the box comes down and pushes us. But as you may have guessed, I couldn't get that to work either. Plus, we probably couldn't legitimately achieve a Holp that high up. I had just hacked it there for testing purposes all those years ago. Now another thing I realized was that a star dance clip would let us get from the bullet bill block to the tower. The only problem was that we're already using up the 100 coin star to get onto the bullet bill block. So yeah, both getting onto the bullet bill block and getting onto the tower platform can be done with a 100 coin star. But we only have one 100 coin star, so we can't use it for both. So how about this? We'll save the 100 coin star for getting onto the platform and then do something else to get onto the bullet bill block. But how else can we get onto it? It's too high up to get onto using a misalignment. But what about vertical speed conservation? Well, we can store vertical speed here using the elevator, punch our way towards the bullet bill block, but then we get hit by a bullet bill on our way over there, which zeroes out our vertical speed. But the idea is not completely dead because maybe we could do something sneaky, like using a cork box to deflect bullet bills before they reach us. So hypothetically, let's say we did manage to bring vertical speed over here, would it even help? Well, we can reactivate the vertical speed, but the bullet bill block is too high to ledge grab onto. We can also try going into the misalignment and ground pounding, but that ends up falling off. That's because the bullet bill block is only tangible when you're within a certain radius around it. And for whatever reason, the block's radius is so small that it doesn't even enclose the top corners. So even if we ground pound into the misalignment and snap onto the corner, the bullet bill block just instantly becomes intangible and we fall off. So my attempts to get onto the bullet bill block without a 100 coin star all failed. We definitely need the 100 coin star for that, which means we have no second star to use to get onto the tower, right? Well, what if we used a different star, like the red coin star? Because that's exactly what I did next in what was essentially a joke video called Whomp's Fortress onto the tower, but at what cost? In that video, I first set the Holp near the tower using King Whomp, then I cloned the red coin star and threw it remotely to that Holp, and finally, I used a 100 coin star to get onto the bullet bill block, and then used the red coin star to get onto the tower. But there was one problem, a big problem. Collecting the red coin star ejects you from the level. It's only collecting the 100 coin star that lets you stay inside the level. Technically though, this was the first time that anyone ever made it onto the tower in 0 A presses, so it does get credit for that. But of course, since we get ejected from the level, it doesn't let us get the star on top of the tower, so the whole strat is effectively worthless. I just made that video as a testament to show how close the tower was to being solved without actually being possible. And I'll never forget this comment on the video. With such an unusual video title, I decided to watch the video without reading the description. I was very curious as to what the hell you were trying to do, and then when I realized you found a way onto the tower, I cheered, only to burst out laughing when I noticed the camera pan out. Thank you, Ultimaximus, you get me. So anyway, using the 100 coin star and the red coin star didn't work. But later, I came up with another idea. What if we could spawn 200 coin stars? Because that is actually a thing, though it was much less known about back then. You see, there's an infinite coin glitch you can do as follows. Grab a cork box and put it on something like the blue coin block, then move away from the blue coin block so that it becomes intangible, that way the cork box falls inside of it. Now if we go close again, the blue coin block becomes tangible and breaks the cork box. In other words, we can break the cork box on command. So instead of breaking it right away, if we wait for 30 seconds, the cork box disappears from inactivity. And if we break it right on the frame when it disappears, then we get the coins from the broken box, but the box also respawns, allowing us to do it again. So that's how you can get infinite coins. So let's say we just kept repeating this process so that our coin count would continue to grow. When we reach 100 coins, it spawns a 100 coin star. We'll just leave that alone for now. But how high will the coin count grow to? Well, on the US version of the game, the coin count caps out at 999. On the Japanese version though, there's a bug where the coin count doesn't cap out. It can go beyond 999, which gives you negative 25 lives. Then around 32,000, the coin count actually overflows, becoming negative. From here on, the HUD doesn't even show the true coin count. And then after about 65,000 total coins, we hit 100 coins again, spawning a second 100 coin star. And so if we have 200 coin stars to work with, then we could use one to get onto the bullet bill block and use the other to get onto the tower. Easy, right? Well, while this plan would work in theory, I did not want to TAS all of that. I had calculated that collecting 65,000 coins this way would have made the TAS 10 days long. You thought 12 hours was a ridiculous time for a strat? Imagine 10 days. And back then, we didn't have good brute forcing tools that could have automated everything, so it would have had to have been tasked manually. So yeah, I had come up with a theoretical strat that would solve the tower, but I just didn't want to TAS it. Instead, I decided to keep brainstorming ideas, because I just knew there had to be a simpler way. So to recap, getting onto the first platform was a dead end, and going from the bullet bill block to the second platform was also a dead end. But what about the third platform? This one's even higher, but it is relatively close to the elevators, and the elevators do go pretty high up when they flip around at the top of the cycle. So could we go from the elevator to the third platform? Well, the first thing I tried was throwing a box into myself in the hopes that a Stardance clip would get me up, but it didn't seem to be high enough. I also tried throwing the box from a high up Holp to give me extra time and then doing a rollout as the box pushes me, but that also wasn't high enough. But then I did the unthinkable. I threw the box into myself again, but this time with hacked in vertical speed. And you know what? That actually did make it up, but it used hacks. So the question was there a way to do the same thing legitimately without any hacks? Well, that's when I came up with the real solution. throw the box from a high up Holp to give me some setup time, then do a rollout on the side of the elevator to store vertical speed, and then the box pushes me off, reactivates the vertical speed, I ground pound to go even higher, and then do a star dance clip to get onto the platform. And so finally, after all those ideas, I had found one that seemed like it would work. And I say seemed because there still were a few details to iron out, and that's because the Holp I used for that was just hacked in. But to do it legitimately, we first need to set that Holp somewhere, and then second, we need to get into position on top of the fortress with the box while preserving that Holp. So let's start with the second one. Specifically, let's say we enter the course with the Holp already set high up in the air. We then have to bring the cork box all the way up the course, and we have to do it without updating the Holp so that the Holp stays high up in the air. But that's a little tricky. You see, if we're allowed to update the Holp, bringing up a cork box is relatively easy. We grab it, carry it up the course, but then we get to the elevators, which is the only hard part. But what we can do is put the box down, dive onto the Whomp with it, go onto his head, and then fall onto the elevator from there. So not too difficult, but if we're not allowed to update the Holp, then we can only carry the box with the hat in hand glitch active. That doesn't seem like much of an issue until you get back to the elevators, because now we can't temporarily put the box down to help us get it onto the Whomp. Specifically, the box appears elsewhere when we release it because the Holp is still really high up in the air. So that's the critical issue. When we release the box, it appears elsewhere and then we can't retrieve it. Now, could we somehow climb to the top without having to temporarily put down the box? It's difficult because we can't do much while we're carrying it. Like in the A button challenge, we're already limited because we can't press A to jump. But while carrying the box, we're even more limited than usual because now we can't dive or roll out. All we can do is walk along the ground. So getting onto the Whomp just isn't possible. I also considered falling off of this slope and trying to get onto the elevator from there, but I couldn't manage to get it. Note that earlier when I did it, I wasn't holding an object and so I was allowed to dive. But now, since I'm holding something, I can't dive and so I don't make it. So we tried climbing to the top while holding the box the whole time, but that doesn't work. Instead, we are going to have to release the box, which will let Mario get up and then we'd have to somehow get the box back. Now interestingly, there are actually two different ways to release an object at the Holp. First, we can throw the box, which causes it to appear directly at the Holp and move forwards with the momentum from the throw. So based on that, I tried throwing the box onto the top of the fortress, climbing up as fast as I could, and then trying to retrieve it before it fell off. Unfortunately though, we're just not fast enough to get to it in time. And the second way to release an object is to drop it, which causes the box to appear at the Holp laterally, but at Mario's current height. And the box doesn't move forwards when you drop it, it just falls straight down. Now since the box's drop position depends on Mario's height, I found that we can climb up this slope and then drop the box. That causes the box to appear higher up, though it still ends up falling off. But the box does end up relatively close to this arrow platform. So let's say we moved the Holp over to be laterally aligned with the arrow platform. Now when we drop the box from the top of the slope, it lands on top of the arrow platform and stays there. That allows Mario to climb to the top himself and get to the box before it disappears. And from there, we can drop onto the Whomp, ride him over, then drop onto the elevator and bring the box to the top. So that issue's resolved. We can in fact bring the box into position while preserving the Holp high up in the air. But the other question is, how do we even achieve a Holp that high up? Remember, the Holp is the last place we held an object. So to achieve that Holp, we'd have to hold an object really high up. But luckily, we don't have to do this within Whomp's fortress. Instead, we can set the Holp in any course and it stays preserved between levels. And so after considering different levels, I decided that Bob-omb Battlefield would be the course to do it in. And that's because it has a really high mountain that's close to the desired Holp, and we could place down Goomba clones to get the rest of the way there. And so with that last detail figured out, I was ready to task the final product. And that's exactly what I did in a video I posted on March 11th, 2015. So let's walk through it. I started out in Bob-omb Battlefield. I constructed a Goomba staircase to set the Holp high up in the air. Then I exited out and entered Whomp's fortress. In there, I collected 99 coins. Then I did the strat we talked about to bring a box to the top. But not for the final throw. This box was for spawning the 100 coin star next to the tower. And now that the star was in place, I did the same thing with the other box to bring it to the top. And then finally, I threw the box into myself, stored vertical speed, ground pounded, and did a star dance clip to get onto the tower. Look at that maneuver. Simply beautiful. After all those failed ideas, it felt so good to actually have one succeed. And from there, it was a simple matter of climbing the rest of the tower and then getting the star. So yeah, that's how we first got the tower star in 0 A presses. Now in the A button challenge, our primary goal is to reduce the number of A presses, but as a secondary goal, we also like to reduce the time that a strat takes. You know, do it as fast as possible. So years after the original strat, I found an improvement. Remember when I said it was impossible to bring the box from this slope to the elevator? Well, it turned out there was a way. See, here's the slope. There's a floor on the left and a wall on the right. The wall's hitbox extends out on both sides and is a little lower down than the wall triangle itself. So as you can see, the wall hitbox sticks out above the floor, and if you touch that part, you instantly get pushed off of the slope. That essentially splits the floor into 2 pieces. So we have the big triangle chunk on the left that we've been using up to this point, but we also have a little skinny path on the right that we haven't used at all. And the top part of that skinny path is the key to getting up, because it lets you slide downhill into the wall hitbox. So watch. We go on the skinny path, climb up to the top, slide down into the wall hitbox, get pushed off while in a butt slide, bounce on the ground, and then land on the elevator. That means we no longer need to drop the box as an intermediate step. Instead, we can climb up the whole stage while carrying the box. And if we don't need to drop the box anymore, then we can place the Holp in a better spot, because the previous Holp had 2 constraints. Throwing the box from that Holp had to land on the elevator, and dropping the box from that Holp had to land on the aero platform. But now we no longer need to drop the box onto the aero platform, so there's just 1 constraint. That means we can move the Holp closer to the elevator and farther down, which will be easier to achieve. Because previously, we needed 4 layers of Goomba clones to achieve the Holp. But now that it's lower, we can do it with 1 Goomba, a bowling ball clone, and a bloated Bob-omb, which is a lot faster to set up. And once we have that Holp, we can carry the box to the top of the stage without having to drop it, do the throw, and get onto the tower using the star. Note that the timing for the maneuver is a lot tighter now, but it still works. So that was one optimization. But then we had a breakthrough that changed everything, found by Iver Sonch. It turns out you actually can do a rollout from the bullet bill block to the second platform, specifically by getting into a misalignment in the corner. So that idea that I had tried years earlier, it turned out to be possible the whole time. So what was the new insight that led to this breakthrough? Well, it has to do with how walls work. So consider a box as seen from above. It has 4 walls whose hitboxes extend out like this. Seems normal, but what happens if the box is at an angle? What do the wall hitboxes do? You might think they'd look like this and just extend out perpendicularly to the walls, but that's not right. Instead, every wall hitbox extends out either perfectly along the X direction or perfectly along the Z direction, whichever's closer to being perpendicular. So consider a diagonal wall like this and like this. Like I said, their hitboxes do not extend out perpendicularly. That's wrong. Instead, the left one's hitbox would extend out perfectly horizontally, and the right one's hitbox would extend out perfectly vertically. So the hitboxes end up shaped like parallelograms. But even though the shape is a little wonky, the direction that the hitbox pushes Mario is still exactly perpendicular to the wall. So don't get that mixed up. So going back to the box, this is what it looks like when it rotates. Looks a bit weird, doesn't it? You can see that each wall hitbox extends out either horizontally or vertically and does a sudden snap to the other one when it crosses 45 degrees. But now let's say the wall was oriented at a 45-degree angle, like the tower platform in Whomp's Fortress. Now even the slightest movement of the platform can change whether the walls project in the X direction or the Z direction, because they're right on the bound between the 2 directions, and that changes which corners are open and closed. For example, at this moment, the corner on the left is open, like there's a gap in the wall hitboxes there, while the corner on the right is closed, there's no gap. But a little later in the movement, it's different, as now the left corner's closed and the right corner's open. So that's what's going on with the platform on the tower. It's at a 45-degree angle, so the wall hitboxes constantly fluctuate between the X and Z directions. So sometimes the corners are open and sometimes they're closed. and we can only get into a misalignment on an open corner. So the breakthrough came when Eva examined the exact fluctuations of the walls and found that the corner was open on the frames when the platform was closest to us, and so that just barely lets us get into the misalignment. Now with that improvement, Eva and 5th Dispense were able to task the whole strat in 1 minute and 43 seconds, which was later optimized to 1 minute and 41 seconds, and then to 1 minute and 32 seconds. So now, let's watch the whole strat to see this star's final form. So we actually start out in Cool Mountain because first we have to set the Holp. Not for throwing the box into ourselves, but for a different strat that'll save time. More on that later. And note that this is all part of a full game run, so it makes the most sense to set the Holp using the baby penguin during the snowman race, because we're waiting for the snowball to roll down the course anyway, so doing it this way doesn't cost any time. Now skipping ahead to later in the run, let's see what happens in Whomp's Fortress. Now I'm not going to do any cuts or fast forwards because I want to show you just how fast the whole star is and how stylish it can be. So first, we have to collect 100 coins so that we can do a star dance clip. And look at that, we can use misalignments to climb up the big steps super fast. And you're not gonna believe this, it turns out you can go from the steep slope straight to the top. No butt slide, no elevators, just going straight up. That allows us to quickly get to the islands in the sky so that we can collect the coins from them. Then we come down here to get even more coins and kill that piranha plant. We'll get his blue coin in a second. And now we actually do a slide kick bounce to get above the blue coin block, ground pound it, and then get the blue coins. Now remember that piranha plant we killed like 10 seconds ago? Well, there's his blue coin. That's right, we got good RNG so that the coin would just come over to us later on our path. And with these, we have enough coins now. So next, we throw the cork box to the top of the course using a glitch called Behind Camera Anywhere. For that glitch, you lock the camera in place, go behind it so that Mario doesn't get rendered, and then you can throw objects without updating the Holp. And that glitch is faster than the hat in hand glitch because 1, we don't even have the metal cap unlocked at this point in the run, and 2, doing the hat in hand glitch just takes a while. And then when we go back up, there's a coin there for us to spawn a 100 coin star and do a star dance clip onto the bullet bill block. But where'd that coin come from? Well, here's another view of what happened. You can see the Holp there, and the box came out of the Holp when we threw it remotely. Now the box goes over the edge and breaks, releasing some coins. And thanks to good RNG, that one coin goes the exact direction we needed. That lets us collect it right next to the bullet bill block, spawn the 100 coin star, and then do a star dance clip to get up. Now once we're on the bullet bill block, we can do a rollout into the misalignment, and then we're on the tower. From there, we can do rollouts to climb up the platforms, ledge grab on the last one to trigger it a little sooner, and then finally get the star. And that's the fastest way to get this star in 0 A presses. So to recap, first we got onto the tower using the box bounce on the elevator, then we got onto the tower by going into the misalignment from the bullet bill block. But what if I told you there was actually a third way to get onto the tower? In fact, a way easy enough that even a person could do it in real time. Let me explain. So something we can do in the game is clone one of these falling blocks. We can then go onto the falling block that we cloned and release it as it's falling down and rotating. What ends up happening is that Mario receives rotational displacement from the falling block, but from the new location that he threw it to. This is a trick called platform release displacement. But notably, if we use the hat in hand glitch to throw the falling block farther away, then we can get a bigger displacement because the displacement is proportional to Mario's distance away from the block. Let me illustrate this principle with this rotating platform. If we stand near the platform's point of rotation, Mario doesn't get moved very much. Now if he stands farther away from that point, then he gets moved a lot more. And that's because the rotational displacement each frame is proportional to how far away Mario is from the point of rotation. So let's say hypothetically, Mario could stand on the platform from really far away. Now he gets rotated at a pretty insane pace. It's still the same rotational speed, but now it has to cover a much larger circumference in the same time frame. So yeah, a normal rotation has a huge effect on far away points. And so that's the idea going on here. The falling block rotates Mario because he's standing on it, and then if we throw it really far away, he still receives rotational displacement for one more frame, but now it's magnified by a huge amount. And if that amount is big enough and aimed correctly, we can use it to teleport right onto the tower. It almost looks fake, just teleporting from the bridge to the tower, but I assure you, it's a real strat. And if we zoom out even more, you can see where the block ended up, at the very bottom of the course near the death barrier. And this strat was first done in real time by Ivan782. So first he used the baby penguin to set the Holp all the way on the edge of the course really far down. Then he cloned the falling block, walked onto it, threw it, and made it onto the tower. And so that was the first time anyone ever got the star in 0 A presses without TAS tools. Then later, Trek was able to do it too, and Marbler was also able to pull it off.
Let's go. All right. Now I just need to not mess this up.
And so that's the story of the Whomp's Fortress Tower. For decades, it had been stuck at 1 A press, but as the community learned more glitches and pooled our knowledge together, we reduced it to 0 A presses, we got it down to only a few minutes, and it's now doable by a person in real time. And so I think it's fair to say, the Whomp's Fortress Tower has been conquered. And now for this video's member event. In case you don't know, at the end of all my regular videos, all the members of my channel participate in a member event. And it should come as no surprise that this member event will be taking place in Whomp's Fortress. So here are the rules. You guys are going to be racing to the top of the fortress. First person to touch the star wins. And as per usual, if you fall off at all, you die. And that's all the rules. So without any further ado, let's begin. Looks like we already have some deaths on that piranha plant. Who dies on the first enemy? Well, I'll tell you who. Quite the handful, the flying fire, and Kid leaves stoop. He could leave his stoop, but he couldn't leave the starting area. Now you guys are getting pushed off by the bumps. It's mayhem in here, everyone's falling off. We've lost Sakagura Synth, Mr. Sir, Morphstar Changeling, Biggs22, Vlather, Lugmalord, Eric Vilas, Kadax, PJ Sands, L. Palmer, Cubic, Nathan Perkins, Chromosomnio, Toshigun1337, The Chuckster, HK Jacket, Hot Joe, JR Kamixtum, Rageman, The Bros, Phanton, Buprofen64, Nana Nitro, and Lil Gamers. Now you guys are coming up on the rotating bridge, but it looks like you missed the cycle, so you have to wait, and that means everyone gets to catch up. Okay, I guess we're all going onto it. I don't think it was meant for this many people, but somehow you guys made it work. Now you're coming up on the Whomp. Watch out. Oof, we lost Dougie Jones, Mandel, and Dememes. Now who's gonna meme it up for the rest of the race? Oh wait, that's my job. And next we're at the elevators. You gotta time your jump just right. Okay, some of you guys made it on. As for the rest of you, well, good luck. And now we're finally at the tower. And our first batch of people is heading onto it right now. And, it looks like they all fell off. Hopefully our second batch of people will do a little better. They do know to wait for the cycle at least. Okay, we're climbing up, getting pretty far, with some casualties. Looks like Lawyer Dog and Venomous Rage are still in the game. Okay, almost at the last platform, and, they fumbled right at the end. Now there are only 2 players left in the whole event. TentXB and Habit1310. Okay, and they made it to the final platform. It all comes down to this, one last race to the star. Who's gonna get it? And it looks like TentXB made it first. And that's it, it's over. So, congrats to our first place finisher, TentXB. And good job to the only other person to reach the star, Habit1310. And everyone else will be ranked by how long they lasted before dying. So yeah, that's what a member event is like. So if you want to get in on the next one, consider becoming a member of my channel. To do that, you click on the join button below the video, or use the link in the description. Or if you want a free way to support me, you can also just subscribe, that helps too. Whether you're a viewer, subscriber, member, I appreciate the support. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is what I'd consider a small regular video. I mean, it is 40 minutes, so not exactly small, but it is small in terms of scope. Like, the focus is just 1 star in the A button challenge. That's what I like to do. Pick a topic and then explain everything there is to know about that topic. Oftentimes, I'll think there's not too much to cover, but somehow the video always ends up way longer than I expected. expected. Well, for this video, there actually was a lot to cover when you factor in all the failed ideas I had. As you saw, figuring out how to get onto the tower wasn't straightforward. I went through so many ideas. I mean, back in the day, the tower was like my white whale. So close and yet no way to do it. But I was persistent, so it just goes to show if you want to succeed in life, you can't give up. You have to keep trying even through the failures. Now interestingly, all those failed ideas were actually posted on my second channel. That's where I like to document things so that they won't be forgotten. But did I ever tell you why I like to document everything about this game? Well, let me explain. You see, I want to know everything about this game, every inch of what it has to offer. Like, I want to know what the highest coin counts are, what the minimum A press count is. These things fascinate me, as a simple question about the game can often have a very complex answer. Like in this video, we tackled the question, how many A presses does it take to get the tower star? But as you saw, I didn't solve that question all on my own. Tyler introduced those new ABC strats, Ever found the misalignment onto the platform, Ivan figured out the real-time strat to get onto the tower. In other words, I can't figure out everything about this game on my own. There's just no way. It takes a whole community to advance these things by having people of many different skill sets, and so that's why I like to document everything. It lets other people start with the knowledge that we already figured out. That way, they don't have to start from scratch. Like, imagine if everyone had to figure out how cloning works all on their own. The community would be a lot less efficient. But if I document everything, then the knowledge becomes easily accessible and digestible, allowing way more people to meaningfully contribute. Because after all, when we all come together, we can push this game farther than it's ever been before. Step by step, layer by layer, we further our knowledge and capabilities, and find ways to do what's never been done. Because, at the end of the day, the sky's the limit. Thanks for watching.